we're discussing the topic failing successfully. How do you fail successfully? Because it looks like you are putting two words together that do not form correct grammar. Right? How do you fail successfully? So when you hear the word failure, that's one word you don't want to have anything to do with. Or mistake, or miscalculation. So when we're discussing growth, we're discussing business success, those are not words we want to hear at all. But what if I told you that actually that business success you are looking for, that growth you're looking for, you cannot achieve it without failure? One of the founders of IBM, Tom Watson, they said one of his engineers made a mistake that cost the business $600,000. So Tom Watson sent for the engineer. When the guy came to his office, Tom Watson said, "I'm sure you know why I called you." He said, "Sure." "To fire me?" Tom Watson said, "Why should I fire you? I just spent $600,000 training you. Why should I allow somebody else to hire your new experience? You made a mistake, it cost me $600,000. When you go work for somebody else, you won't make the same mistake again. I hire a new person, he has potential of making the same mistake or more. It's better you stay here so we don't make that mistake anymore." That's amazing, isn't it? What a way to look at failure. So when we were in school, they took us into the science lab, and then we did whatever it was, mixed some chemicals together. They said some would turn pink, some would turn purple, some would turn blue. And whatever it was we were doing, they said it was experiment. Right? It was experiment. So even we were not expecting it to be perfect because they said it was experiment. So what then happens to us as we grow into adults that makes us think that there's no room for experiment anymore in life, that things are supposed to work out the first time? Who said? There's nothing that has value that man has created. All these beautiful things, none of them worked out perfectly the first time that somebody was inventing them. It took a lot of trying and failure, and trying and failure, and trying before they got it right. So when you create an atmosphere where people are afraid to fail, when you create an atmosphere where there's little tolerance for mistake, you are killing the potential for success, the potential for curiosity, the potential for experimenting. So let's discuss this a little bit. Failure is an integral part of any success. Accept that. So I found out failure is not the problem. How we see failure is the problem. Failure is an integral part of any success. There's a famous story told about Thomas Edison, the great inventor. And they said, when he was trying to invent the incandescent light bulb, they said when he had tried 5,000 times and it did not work, his assistant said, "Sir, let's leave this thing. We've failed 5,000 times already." They said, Thomas Edison replied, "Son, we have not failed 5,000 times. We have only discovered 5,000 ways in which it will not work. We are closer to the answer now than we were when we started. Let's continue." They did another 5,000 before they got it. 10,000. Now everybody is enjoying the result. So, but what if Thomas Edison did not have the correct attitude to failure? So, failure is actually an integral part of any success. Before the basketballer that you love got to the point where almost every shot is correct, There were thousands and thousands of throws, thousands and thousands. And it's from the mistakes, the ones that work right, the ones that don't work right, that we learn exactly what works. So, accept it, that failure is a normal part of the success process. Secondly, failure is an event, never a person. You must separate the two. There's a difference between failure as a person and failure as an event. Failure is an event, never a person. President Barack Obama said, "You can't let your failures define you. You have to let your failures teach you." Year 2000. Young lawyer Barack Obama contested for the 1st Congressional District of Illinois as a state representative, contested against the incumbent and lost gallantly. He lost gallantly because he got only 1/3 of the votes. So what if he had convinced himself that he was not called into politics, that it was not his destiny? The amazing thing is the gentleman did not give up. He tried again, won the next time. 8 years after that loss, he became the president of the United States of America. So only God knows how many successes have been buried prematurely because someone gave up just because something did not happen. So the same man, Barack Obama, now says, right? You can't let your failures define you. You have to let your failures teach you. That what you tried did not work out. That was an event. You are a person. You have to separate the two. One single event cannot define your whole life and personality. One of the greatest battles you will ever fight in your life is what I call the battle of identity, who you think you are. Once Satan, because I know it is his job, once Satan can get you to believe that you are less than you are, he has you. He's gotten you. And I believe, honestly, that that's one battle that every human being fights. We are wealthy. Satan wants to make us to believe that we are poor. So in this instance, something did not work out. We interpret that into our identity to mean that we're not successful. That's a big mistake. Separate the event from the person. Barack Obama did that. The event did not work out. It was an election. But inside him, he was president, and he kept moving. You know, I mentioned yesterday that one person I mentioned in almost all my messages is Joseph in the Bible. So one day, many years ago, I was reading his story, Genesis 39. The first verse talks about how Joseph was taken as a slave to the slave market in Egypt, and how a military officer called Potiphar bought him, right? Many people read the Joseph story. They don't know that Joseph was not an employee. He was Potiphar's property. Potiphar bought him at the market. He was like a piece of furniture. Then verse 2 of that chapter, Genesis 39, says, and okay, when you read it in the King James Version of the Bible, it says, and Joseph was a prosperous man. That was what I was reading then. I use newer translations now. Some say he was a successful man. But that day, I was reading, I said, and Joseph was a prosperous man. My head just, was like, you said what? I just stopped. I said, somebody is making a mistake here. Verse 1 says that Potiphar bought him in the market. Verse 2 says he was a prosperous man. I said, Lord, it's not adding up. Where did he get the prosperity from? You know that when somebody is a slave, he cannot even have a bank account. If he owns a bank account, himself and the bank account are the property of his master. So where did he get the prosperity from? The Spirit of God said, you know I cannot be wrong, so you are the one that has a problem. Read it again. I said, no problem. And Joseph, and he was a prosperous man. I said, is this the same thing? I said, where did he get the prosperity from? The Holy Spirit said, read it again. Just read it slowly. You are going too fast. That's why you are missing it. Read this slowly. I said, okay. And the Lord was with Joseph. And he was, the Holy Spirit said, stop. Because that's where your problem is. I did not say that he had prosperity. I said he was. You are defining him by his current situation. Somebody was deceived by his brothers. He was betrayed. He was sold by his brothers. They bought him in the market. You are using that to define him. But all those things are external. I am describing who he was inside. The dream I gave him was that one day he would be in the palace. That was what he used to define himself. Did you see the kind of work he did? Right? Did you see the quality of work that he did in Potiphar's house? He was doing palace class work. To the extent Potiphar put him in charge of everything. Who puts a slave in charge of everything? He was not an employee, remember. He was. So the Holy Spirit said to me, even though his circumstances did not look right, he did not allow the circumstances to define who he was. He allowed what God told him to define who he was. Amen. Never allow one event, one incident to define who you are. Failure is only an event. So you write an examination, you see the way our world works. You write an examination, you don't pass, they say you're a failure. You pass, they say you're successful. In your bank account, when there's plenty of money there, they say you're rich. If there's no money there, they say you're poor. If you allow the world to label you like that, they will destroy you. Never allow failure, an event, to define you as a person. The beautiful thing is that failure actually produces qualities in us that are more permanent, positive qualities. Let's move on. Failure is a gateway to tacit knowledge. Tacit knowledge. Henry Ford said, failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently. This time more intelligently. Failure is a gateway to tacit knowledge. So there are two kinds of knowledge in organizational development. There's the one we call explicit knowledge. Explicit, clear. That's the knowledge that you can write down. That's the knowledge that can be documented. It can be taught to other people. But the other kind of knowledge, the second one, is tacit. That tacit is a function of experience. See, I grew up on the construction site. My dad was a building contractor, right? And that's why I studied civil engineering, because I also wanted to become a contractor. And I remember after my graduation, when I got my job as a site engineer, because my dad's business was down. I wasn't supposed to look for a job. That was where I was supposed to work. But business was down, so I looked for a job. On that site engineer, I had a site supervisor and an assistant site supervisor. They were much older than myself. I was a fresh graduate. And I was the site engineer. I was their boss. Wisdom told me to behave myself. Because those two people, they could sell me on that site. The only things I knew, it was book knowledge that I read and used to pass. On that site, it was a different ball game. But those people had been on site for like 30 years. I befriended them. We were friends. And I was asking a lot of questions. They had been on so many sites. When we had a problem, they would say, I remember when we were on one site like that in so-and-so city. When we came across a problem like this was how we, bring that thing. Let's try it this way. That's how they were solving problems. Now that is tacit. The only way you get it is by serving as an apprentice to somebody else or experimenting, trying. That tacit knowledge is what failure gives. And it can make the difference between success and failure. So don't throw away your failure. Don't avoid them. Because failure gives you that tacit knowledge. I'm someone who experiments a lot. Honestly, I think one day I should write a book on my failures. Because I have tried many things that did not work. I've tried many, but people don't know that's how it works. You try 99 things, they don't work. Number 100 works. You see the way life works? That one that works compensates for the 99 that did not work. And it is that one that works that the world hears about, right? And then some people who don't have experience, they see that somebody is very successful, and then they're just praying, Lord, make me like that person. Do you know what you are asking for? You don't know what it took to get there. A lot of good, tacit knowledge. Failure shapes your values and character. Failure shapes your values and character. Wendell Phillips, an American abolitionist, said, "What is defeat? What is defeat? Nothing but education." What is defeat? Nothing but education. Failure shapes your values and character. When you think, when you have this sense that you are invincible, that you are strong, you are perfect, and nothing can happen. When you make a mistake, then you realize yourself. You are not as perfect as you think. It makes you humble, makes you to make new decisions, makes you to set new boundaries, right? I made a mistake. I made a mistake that embarrassed me. You remember how Peter was bragging when Jesus Christ said, "You are going to deny me today." He said, "Me over my dead body. They will have to kill me before they get to you." I know you more than you know yourself. So, when I was in school, I was in the Polytechnic, and we had this military regime that came on then, and they decided to just jail all the politicians. They arrested all the politicians they could get and just jailed them. And said, "We know that the law says you are innocent until proven guilty. For them, you are guilty until you prove yourself innocent. So all of you are corrupt." Then they changed the currency because they said the politicians had stored money in water tank, buried water in the ground. They wanted to waste the money that the politicians had stolen. So they changed the currency and said everyone had to go deposit their cash in the bank and that the banks would give us new currency. So gratefully, I had a bank account. And a friend of mine in school who did not have a bank account gave me his money to keep in my bank account for him. And then the government, when you put your money in the bank, the banks did not give you money. They said there was no new currency, so they were rationing the money, giving it little by little. I was going through a very difficult time. My parents could not get money to send to me, and I caved in to the pressure and borrowed my friend's money without asking him, because I was just sure that money would come in and I would replace it quietly without saying anything. Sadly for me, I could not replace the money by the time my friend wanted it. That thing embarrassed me deeply. That thing hurt me deeply. It hurt my pride, my confidence in myself that I was okay, that I was disciplined. And the beautiful thing, why I can share it, is because from that point, I made up my mind. I would never take anything that belongs to somebody else again. I would rather die of hunger than take a dime of money that belongs to someone. I'm grateful. I'm grateful that, okay, yes, it was a bad thing. It's something I don't even like to remember, but I'm grateful also that it happened then, so that I could know myself, that I was not as strong as I thought I was. So whatever it is now that I do, organizations that I run, there is accountability. I run a church, there is a board. The only thing I take is what they approve for me, allowances, and so on. If I need to take anything, I go ask. If I run a budget, it is approved by the board and all that. And it came from that experience. So, failure can shape our values and our character. Help us to identify the weaknesses in our thinking, the weaknesses in the things, in our priorities, right? Failure can shape our values and our character. Next, failure makes your experience invaluable. One Chinese proverb says, "The master has failed more times than the beginner has even tried." That's what makes you an expert, actually, is the fact that you've tried many times. There are loads of people today who are not sharing their stories. So because I train leaders a lot, especially people in the boardroom, I point out something to them. Especially in this, our Africa. Like we were training the board of a big bank in Nigeria, and I said, look, everybody here is about my age or slightly older. How many of you have written a book? I said, you know what it takes to succeed in this Africa, the challenges, that we face. I said, look at the millions of young people that we have. They have lost hope. They're disillusioned. I said, it's not principles or theories really that will fire them up. Stories. You need to share your stories. But what I've come to realize is actually that most of us underestimate the value of our stories. Leaders know that stories connect more with people than principles. When I go around Africa, and I'm speaking because I work with the Global Leadership Summit a lot, so I've been to Senegal, Burkina Faso, Togo. Last year I was in Angola, on the platform of the Global Leadership Summit. So when I'm speaking to fellow Africans, I know in my mind, since they've gotten the introduction, this global consultant, this pastor of a very big church, So I come. When I start talking, I see them, they'll just be looking at me. I know I'm not connecting with them because they're thinking, does this guy understand what we're going through? You know what I do? I just tell them my stories. I just start from when it was difficult for my dad to pay rent. Landlord took him to court. I went with him to the court. I tell them that it is rich people that don't know how to press toothpaste out of the tube. That if you went through what I went through, you won't be wasting toothpaste. We press it from the bottom. We press it gradually. Press it gradually, gradually, gradually. You press it and make sure the thing is flat. And that when you have pressed everything out, then you use your brush to scrape the rest from the mouth of the tube. Then I tell them, you don't stop there. Then you take a knife and you cut it. Thank you. This is the exact reaction that I get everywhere. Because all of a sudden they realize, oh, this guy understands. This guy understands us. He understands. Value, in my story, value from something I should be ashamed of is the reason why the world listens to me, right? Failure makes your experience invaluable. Failure is just a small part of your much larger goal. Don't let one event that did not work now grab your whole attention and take your whole vision. Take your eyes off the big picture. There is still, there is still life ahead. So I tell people, that bad situation looks like the end of your life, right? It is not an end. If you drive, you will understand what I'm saying, because whenever you are approaching a bend, it always seems as if that is the end of the road, because you can't see beyond that. But if you then pack up and sit by the side of the road and tell yourself, this is the end of the road, what will happen? You drive to that bend. You negotiate the bend, then you find out that the road stretches straight again after that. So, failure is temporary after all. Failure is temporary after all. It's just a small part of your much larger goal. President Robert Kennedy said, only those who dare to fail greatly can ever achieve greatly. Only those who dare to fail greatly can ever achieve greatly. Every failure is an opportunity to succeed. Every failure is an opportunity to succeed. Bruce Lee, if you are old enough, you will know him, right? The Kung Fu expert. He said, don't fear failure. Not failure, but low aim is the crime. In great attempts, it is glorious even to fail. If what you're trying to achieve is great, a failure is something that should earn you some badges, right? So those that dare greatly usually fail greatly or fail spectacularly like that. I always imagine in my mind what happened when Jesus Christ died. His disciples were confused. Confused because his death was a spectacular public failure. In fact, his disciples ran away. It did not make sense to them. Someone so powerful, someone who had worked miracles, someone who had pulled big crowds, now sacrificed like chicken, crucified like chicken on a tree, with soldiers nearby taunting him. You said you are the Son of God. Boss, save yourself. You want to save the whole world. Save yourself now. He was being criticized right there on the cross. Their boss, they ran away. It did not match the picture of success. But Jesus Christ went through it knowing that it was temporary. Maybe one of the benefits of failure is that it helps you to know your real friends and the ones that are not real. Because when the fire falls, it's the real ones that will hang around, right? So, embrace failure as a teacher. Embrace failure as a teacher. I tell people, when they tell me about their failures, I said, don't build a monument on that failure. Learn the lessons, forget the detail, move on. Don't build a monument on your failure. I saw a book with a friend many years ago. The title of the book, How to Bounce Back from Failure to Success in 30 Seconds. I said, ha! I said, please, have you almost finished it? He said, please, when you finish it, when you finish, borrow me the book. Ha! How to bounce back from failure to success in 30 seconds. My life can change in 30 seconds. I couldn't wait to read the book. And then when I got the book, I read it. The guy said, you can bounce back from failure to success in 30 seconds because that is how long it takes for you to make up your mind to try again. That is how long it takes for you to make up your mind to try again. When you embrace failure as a teacher, you build resilience, grit. You cultivate a growth mindset, and you turn your stumbling blocks into stepping stones. When I was a student, I became the president of the Christian Fellowship on my campus. We organized an outreach where we wanted to preach to students. So I was looking for something dramatic to do to attract them to the event. So I got an idea. So we created these posters that we stuck all over the campus. It read, "There is no God." Then we put in bracket a statement found in the Bible. So if you've read the Bible before, you will have an idea what I was trying to say. Because what the Bible actually says is that the fool has said in his heart that there is no God. So I just cut the first part off and took the "there is no God" and put it there, a statement found in the Bible. I wanted curiosity to bring them. Then we will tell them it is the fool that said so. And ask them to give their heart to God. Sadly, the plan backfired. Everywhere we put that thing on the campus, with biro, they were ready, "You are stupid." "You are mad." They did not come. At least I learned one lesson. You don't have to be over dramatic to get people's attention, right? It's life.